The Tour de France hit the Alps at the weekend, and the Alps hit back. 30 riders left the race in 48 hours, among them three-time winner Greg LeMond. But among the carnage, the race also produced its supermen. Claudio Chiappucci on Saturday, Andy Hampsten yesterday, and Miguel Indurain, who now leads into the final week.
Yesterday, Greg LeMond was consoled by wife Cathy, feeling the sadness as he leaves by what the French call the small door of this 7th Tour de France for him. 5 times he's finished in the top 3 in Paris, and like all champions, he's tried not to give up this time.
Believe me, I didn't want to quit today. I mean, I quit mainly because I was 30 minutes down. Another 3 minutes, I would have been out of the time delay. I had hoped to. I honestly thought I'd be able to stay with at Gruppetto and finish within the time delay. I was dropped within 1 kilometer of the start, and it has nothing to do with my cardiovascular system. It has nothing to do with my mind. It's just when your legs are tired and dead, there's nothing I can do. No more. I can't push my body beyond what it can do. I mean, even Bugno, who's been riding well, lost it big time today. Stephen Roche, Fignon. It's been an extremely hard tour, and it's just a matter of survival, and I wasn't able to survive the last 2 days.
Hello and welcome back to the Tour de France. We're now in the village of Bourg d'Oisans. The Alps are behind us. Greg LeMond not alone yesterday in his defeat in this year's race. 30 riders giving up in the past 48 hours. Only 135 survived this race now from the 198 that set off from Spain just over 2 weeks ago. I'm sorry about the voice, but I think that also abandoned this race in the Alps, but our shows will go on as normal. Now, the Tour de France is 3 weeks of shared pain, both in defeat and victory. And yesterday, when they faced the common enemy of the Alps, there was a strange alliance, one of respect and one of friendship, as Paul Sherwin explains.
The severity of the mountains reduces all riders to the basic human instinct of just helping each other to survive. Duclos Lassalle thought nothing of his own chances, but remained with team leader Greg LeMond, just trying to pace him along the valley roads and keep him in the Tour de France. Unfortunately for him, both he and his leader failed. In the closing stages of the Alpe d'Huez, the 3 riders were fighting each other for victory. But despite this, when a bottle was passed to Andy Hampsten from a roadside spectator, he shared it with the other 2, Franco Vona and Eric Boyer. They all wanted to win, but they shared a common pain. Further down the mountain, Julian Gorospe was working for his team leader. He paced Miguel Indurain to the foot of the Alpe d'Huez. Completely exhausted, he swings off the front of the bunch. But before leaving, he gave Indurain his last drinking bottle for the rest of the climb. He wished him well and then disappeared to ascend the mountain alone and suffer in silence.
And when the Tour de France goes on again today, this is the overall classification this morning. Miguel Indurain now leading the race by 1 minute 42 seconds from Claudio Chiappucci. Andy Hampsten up into 3rd place, but 8 minutes behind. Of the others, Delgado in 6th place. Eric Breukink has come up to 7th. Stephen Roche is down to 11th. Robert Miller holds his own in 15th position. And Franco Chioccioli is in 19th place. And the rollout this morning. And after all of the riders who were eliminated and gave up, there was also 1 rider disqualified yesterday for holding on to a car. And that was Peter Peters from the Tulip team. This is the route they face, leaving Bourg d'Oisans. A sprint comes very early on, and then towards the end, a couple of very nasty climbs before the long, quick descent into Saint-Etienne. And at the first sprint today, well, 20 riders had already broken clear. They had a lead of 3.5 minutes, and the first man across the line was Henri Manders of the Helvetia team, just ahead of the winner of the Tour of Flanders this year, Jackie Durand. Onto the small climb of the Côte de Jorgat. Now, it was only a 3rd category climb, but it was in a very narrow back street. And just before the end, it was very, very steep indeed. In fact, a number of the riders in the breakaway were forced to dismount and walk. Over the top went Richard Vironk, ahead of Franz Masson and Massimo Girotto. Well, the climb of the Côte de Jourdain was at 81 kilometres. We are now at around 170 kilometres covered. And just a few moments ago, the last of that 20-man breakaway was swept up, and that was Franco Roscioli along with the Austrian champion Harold Meyer. We are now on the climb of the Col de la Croix du Chauberet. One man has made the counter move, Franco Chioccioli. As we look here now at the peloton, and all of the riders at the head of the classification, including this man, of course, are riding near the front of the bunch, and a number of riders, Paul, again in difficulty at the back.
Well, it's been so hard today. The temperature's up in 30 degrees Celsius, and the tar melting on the roads, making it very, very difficult. And the damage has been done by this team at the front, the Once team. As we said, there's been a big battle this last weekend for the yellow jersey, and Miguel Indurain has come on top of that battle. But now the man just going off the picture in the pink jersey, he's fighting for another competition, that of the green jersey, and he would like to get over the top of this climb in the front group without Johan Museeuw, the Belgian sprinter there, who's at the moment leading the green jersey competition. Chioccioli's now starting to move away from the group. It's 46 seconds with all the work behind in the main field being done by Neil Stevens, who really has come through this year and become an excellent rider, brilliant domestique for his team, and I think very much appreciated by the Once squad.
Here's the time check, 46 seconds. And the kilometre that time was taken was at 172, 107 miles into the race today.
And here's Steve-O, as they call him, on the front, setting the pace. His jersey ripped open a little bit there, just to try and get a little bit cooler. It is so hot out there at the moment, very stormy weather. And as we look back down the field, it'd be nice to see whether or not Johan Museeuw can follow the speed that's being set by Stevens at the front, because that is what he wants to do. He wants to just get rid of that green jersey holder.
Well, Neil Stevens has been a revelation for his Once team in the race this year. This tough little Australian. He's ridden the Tour of Italy, the Tour of Spain, and he could well be on his way now to become the first Australian rider to finish all 3 big tours in the same year, and that is a tremendous achievement. He certainly hasn't come away from the Alps tired, Paul, if he can keep this chase up after these breakaways like he's done all day.
Well, he's been working all through the Tour de France, actually. We noticed him in the earlier weeks wearing that big pink helmet that made him unmistakable, but now, as the weather's got a little bit warmer, I think he's decided, rather than carry that for the whole of the stage, he'd rather do without. And a lot of these riders do. It's a question of personal choice, and when it gets so hot out there, it's very difficult to support the heat of wearing those helmets, especially under the effort that these riders go through.
There he is, Neil Stevens, number 87. Tapping along very, very nicely indeed.
Jalabert looking very comfortable at the moment. As I said a lot earlier, he's got the advantage of being a climber who can actually sprint, and the group here really has blown apart under the pressure set by Neil Stevens and the Once team at the front here. Indurain and Chiappucci quite happy to mark each other as they've done for the past few days, and good to see Stephen Roche has got over that little bit of a bad day he had yesterday when he came in 12 minutes behind, and he's back near the front again.
Well, it does appear, in fact, that Stevens is the only member of the Once team now strong enough to help Laurent Jalabert on this climb. Jalabert will stay in his slipstream. Jalabert's ambition today would be to win his second stage of the Tour de France. By so doing, he will get maximum points towards the green jersey and might even take it back off Johan Museeuw, the Belgian.
Well, there's an 8-point gap difference. There's an 8-point difference between these two riders in that competition at the moment, and we're getting confirmation over the radio that, in fact, the green jersey holder Johan Museeuw is at the back of the field, and he really looks as if he's in great difficulty.
So the hard work by Neil Stevens might yet have its rewards today. And if you're watching cycling for the first time, let me tell you that the team always share the winnings. It's not a question of the man that wins the prize takes the money home, because it all goes into the pot. In the case of Miguel Indurain, the first prize in the Tour de France is £200,000 or $400,000. And in fact, Indurain will probably give all of that money to his team as a thank you for the work done to get in the leader's yellow jersey. The face of Laurent Jalabert, who's riding at the front now, hoping that they can pull back this rider out in the lead, Franco Chioccioli. Indurain has no reason to help, he's no reason to hinder, he's just walking his position in second place. He's probably secretly admiring the tempo being set by the Once team on this climb. if the truth were known, but they are still only holding Chioccioli. In fact, Chioccioli is nudging out the odd second. The last check we had halfway up the climb was at 51 seconds.
Neil Stevens has done an excellent job there for his ONCE team, and I think now he's going to say goodbye to this group. He had to swing off. Really been working hard for the last 50 or 60 kilometers with the whole team, but now they've got to the climb. It really is difficult, and he slipped back. Jalabert now knows that Johan Museo is not in this group, so he wants to just make sure the group can get to the top of the climb, clear of the Belgian, and then they'll keep away on the descent down into Saint-Etienne.
And now the counter-attacks are coming from the main field. This is the Z team on the attack.
Atle Kvalsvoll, who had an extremely difficult day on the day to Alpe d'Huez, and he finished some 30 minutes behind, which for a climber must have been a horrendous day for him. They're trying to save something from the Z team after Greg LeMond had to walk away from the race on Sunday, halfway through the stage when he abandoned with his teammate Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle. If they can salvage something with a stage victory, that'll help them to get over this abandon from Greg LeMond.
And again, another superb crowd. We are in the middle of nowhere here in a beautiful forest, but I'm sure many people enjoy their summer Sundays. But today there are hundreds and hundreds of people watching the Tour de France come over the top. This is the Col de la Croix de Chauberey, some 10-15 kilometers above Saint-Etienne. And now they rejoin the main road as they'll turn left at the end, and then the route will become quite familiar to the riders in the Tour de France.
Well, Jalabert having an excellent day. He didn't want to wait to drag the rest of that group, and once he saw that Atle Kvalsvoll had jumped away, he launched an attack himself to join up with him, and he's joined by Udo Boltz, number I think 152 there, from the Telecom team.
So this is a very sharp little counter-attack group now going clear.
Kvalsvoll now, having launched the attack, has gone to the back of the group. He knows Jalabert is a strong sprinter. He knows that this man wants to try and get back up there into contention. He's fighting for his green jersey. He looks across for some help from his team, and Kvalsvoll goes again as Jalabert looks the wrong way. It looks as if maybe the rest of the field have come back, and here is Stephen Roach, number 28.
Well, Stephen Roach is fit again. He's back in the play. But it looks as though Stephen has brought up what is left of the Tour de France today. It has been blown away again, which indicates just how tired these riders are. There was a group of 30 men chasing Chioccioli that closed the gap with his counter-attack. He's down to 53 seconds. There's Chioccioli now making his run for freedom and a victory in Saint-Etienne. But the question is, will he survive? We'll take a break.
Now, Miguel Indurain may appear to have this race in the bag, but if he needed any reminder of just how unpredictable the Tour can be, then this is the stage that provides it. Or more particularly, this stretch of finish in Saint-Etienne, because it was here in 1985 that the great Bernard Hinault suddenly found himself fighting not only to stay in yellow, but to stay in the race.
Well, we didn't really expect any change in the Tour de France today. It looks certain now that Bernard Hinault is going to win the race, and there's been a crash, and I think Hinault has gone down. Hinault, I think, has fallen, and yes, he has, and look at his face. Bernard Hinault is in all sorts of trouble. Well, he's fallen in the last kilometre of this race, but he must get up and he must cross the line.
There was a sprint with Phil Anderson, which was a bit wild. We haven't really got any pictures to prove whose fault it was, so I suffered a broken nose, but that's just part of the risk of the job.
7 years on, Bernard Hinault can afford to give his ordeal the Gallic Shrug treatment. These days, the great man is in green as a technical consultant to the Tour. But back then, his race lead was seriously threatened. Hinault, though, says he had no thoughts of abandoning.
No, not at all. The first thing I did was to check if I'd broken my skull. I put my hands to my head and I felt no pain. It was lucky that the break was so high, so it wasn't too much of a problem. Of course, I had to check the wound and to get rid of all the blood caused by the fall. But once I'd done that, there was no reason not to finish. It made it more difficult to finish, perhaps, but if you want to win, that's what you have to do.
Hinault not only won the stage, after a hospital visit for stitches in his nose and head, he rode on to win the race. It was his 5th Tour de France victory, equalling the great names of Anquetil and Merckx. That means assured superstar status even now, but despite that, Hinault doesn't rank it his greatest win.
No, not the best, not the worst. It's just part of the job. You're out on the road every day racing, so of course there are risks.
Well, Bernard will be riding this route today in the relative safety of one of the Tour vehicles. And if you keep an eye out during the coverage, you may see him standing up, keeping an eye on the action and controlling the riders. And the action is where we go now.
Well, thanks, Gary. And even Hinault didn't face the weather like this when he came into Saint-Etienne a few years ago. Just look at these conditions now. They come over the mountain and the weather has changed completely. We've actually had a thunderstorm in Saint-Etienne. The roads are very wet and the descent is very dangerous, but Coccioli is still hanging on just.
Well, the last time check, Coccioli had 42 seconds, and the attacks are coming thick and fast now on the descent. That's Ronan Pensek, the rider from RMO, at the front there, and he came up to join Stephen Roche, who's at the back here now, and the descent really is quite dangerous. Pensek taking all the risks going around these corners, Roche taking a few less, backing off a little bit, and he'll accelerate back up to Pensek, but there's a big group behind with all the big leaders in.
Well, they're coming into this little town just above Saint-Etienne now. We go through the precinct, which is now laid with very smooth cobblestones. There they are, you can see them. And I should imagine that they are very, very treacherous indeed. Roche-Tailly is the name of the town. And in fact, Coccioli will be rather pleased now. He's stolen a march on the field. He will be confident that they won't take too many risks to bring him back. So the skies may be with him today.
They may well be, and Saint-Etienne in the past has always been a race for the sprinters. When Paris-Nice comes here, it's nearly always a big bunch sprint, but in the Tour de France, it seems to be a small group that's always gone away, and Franco Coccioli knew that. He knew he would be an unmarked man today. He's 25 minutes behind the leaders, taking all the risks going around these corners. They really are slippery. You see he gets his knee out every now and again just to control his stability, and as soon as he gets around the corner, he picks up the speed again. But here is Ronan Pensek coming into the same town and picking up the speed, watching it a little bit over those stones, and there's the chasing group behind.
So they're very, very close, in fact, to catching up with Pensek. Picked up Roche, who's backed off on the slippery descents there.
Pensek must have taken a lot of risks through those little corners there, because Stephen Roche is no slouch on the descents, and it's very rare that somebody gets rid of him, but Pensek has nothing to lose. Roche doesn't want to lose too much. He's well placed on the overall classification. He doesn't want the risk of falling off on this descent, but Pensek, he's just throwing himself around those corners.
And the spray off Pensek's back wheel coming right to the line. He's gone down. Pensek has gone down, and our camera guy has also hit the bike, but Pensek is down. He took one risk too many on the corners. He was pushing to the absolute limit. His back wheel is wrecked. He thankfully is not hurt. In fact, he's trying to ride away on that back wheel, Paul, but it looked to me as though it was broken.
Well, that's why Stephen Roche wouldn't follow this man down. He knew he was taking too many risks, and when you do, just 1 minute's weakness, and there you are, you're on the floor again. But it was Konishev came round. We'll watch this again.
Let's look at this again, just over too far as the back wheel went first and Pensek hit the deck. But you know, hats off to our cameraman here, because he rode so well to avoid Pensek, and he also had to avoid hitting that rolling bike. So the television cameraman and his pilot deserve a medal for that. So this is Konishev now, having taken the head of the chase after that crash to Pensek. Pensek is up and riding, and seemingly showing no fear of the road after that nasty fall.
As they come down towards Saint-Etienne now, the sun's coming out, the road is probably a little bit drier, so they can start to take those risks again in the corners, but Ronan Pensek took one risk too many on those wet roads, and the man at the front who hasn't taken too many risks and is still leading is Franco Coccioli. The time gap still hovering around about the 40-second mark, and he knows it's not very far to go now. I'm sure his teammates have explained the finish to them, because the Tour de France has come down this finish many, many times in the past. 3 kilometers to go for Coccioli.
The roads thankfully have dried a little now, as Coccioli is inside the last 3 kilometers, a rather tricky left-hand bend. Thank goodness that it was dry there. He's now on a false flat here, that's why he's jumped out of the saddle. And then the descent will continue through the back streets of Saint-Etienne. And then a right turn at the very, very bottom, and that's all that lies in front. Then Coccioli will see the banner of the finish of today's stage.
Big chase on behind him. That looks like Giancarlo Perini, the man who really has been a revelation in this Tour de France. He's always been a good rider, but this year I would think is his best Tour de France. He's joined Dmitry Konishev in the chase behind Franco Coccioli, who's a little bit further down the road in front of them. 2 kilometers to go for this group, and the last kilometer, 1 kilometer to go for Franco Coccioli. He's having a quick check over his shoulder now, but I think it's going to be very safe. He'll just drop down here. He's got a right-hand turn followed by another sharp right, and then he's got to climb the false flat up to the finish line. This is going to be a superb victory for this Italian rider who last year won the Tour of Italy.
The turn into the home straight, Franco Coccioli. It's come a little late in the Tour de France. We thought he would have figured earlier than this, but he's come now and he's got his first stage win in his first Tour de France, and he's being pulled to that finish. This is a superb finish, and Coccioli is going to take his first victory in the Tour de France.
Well, he is, and that really has redeemed him. I had him down to finish third in the Tour de France. I expected a lot more of him, but he really has redeemed himself. He's waited, he's tried. We've had him as a favourite over the last few days. He's just got 300 metres to go to the finish line. Look at his eyes, checking to see how much further to go. It won't be very long before he lifts those arms in his victory salute, and the man has come back to take a stage victory in the Tour de France, and he's very happy now. Look at that as he explodes with joy. He's punching the air. He knows now as he looks over his shoulder that he's got a stage victory in the Tour de France under his belt, and he throws his arms in the air over the line. That is sweet. It really is sweet. And coming up, these two riders have got away a little bit on the descent. They've got about a 50-meter lead on the others. That is Perini and Dmitry Konichev. They won't be sprinting for the stage victory today, but here's Giancarlo on the front, setting the pace, looking over. I think behind they will have taken off the pressure a little bit. They won't be too worried now. They know that the stage victory has eluded them. Konichev waiting in the slipstream there of Giancarlo Perini waiting. He's going to start to make his move. He's making his move now. And look at the speed at the top there, 41.8 kilometers an hour. Konichev accelerates. Perini doesn't even try to respond. He's quite happy to get second and third place. Coming over the line, second place for Konichev. Third, and the sprint behind in the pink jersey, Laurent Jalabert is going to try and get the points he wants, but he's being challenged on the line by Chiappucci, who gives up and takes sixth place. Also, Girotto was well up there as well. Next group coming in there is Eddie Bowmans, Gerard Rouet, the field being led by the two Telecom riders. Looks like Hefner. I think Hefner had a little bit of a problem on the final climb. He punctured there. Gert-Jan Tönnies, the TVM rider, coming up the middle. These riders crossing the line quite content to have got today's stage out of the way. And Ronan Pensek, the rider who crashed, came in the back of that group.
The stage result first. Franco Coccioli wins alone, but only by 41 seconds. He heads home ahead of Konichev and Perini, and Jalabert comes home in fourth place. So Franco Coccioli of Italy, we thought he was a contender for the yellow jersey. He wasn't, but he's won a stage. There's no change tonight in the overall classification. The battle goes on between Miguel Indurain in yellow again and the other man, Claudio Chiappucci, who will follow him, I think, all of the way to Paris. Well, the cheers here for Miguel Indurain. He's cleared the mountains now for sure, and he's still in the leaders at yellow jersey. What a great battle today, though it was, in treacherous conditions. And the battle for the green jersey, well, all that work by the Once team. Laurent Jalabert is back in green tonight. I've never known such a good competition for the green jersey in the Tour de France. Just a quick reminder, our competition, we would like you to pick the winner of Sunday's stage on the Champs-Élysées. It's your last chance to try and win a yellow jersey in this year's Tour de France. Here's the telephone number, 0891 500 112. If you want a telephone, or you can send your entries on a postcard, they must reach us by Saturday. It's the same address as ever, Fortel, Tour de France competition, 142 Low Marsh, London, SE1 7AE. Well, the winner yesterday was David Moon. We had almost 10,000 entries. Let's try and beat that. Tomorrow the tour goes on. I hope my voice returns. Until then, goodbye.